So, Destiny, can you elaborate on when you said that you don't deal with abstract concepts or hypotheticals?
Yeah, I do empirical observations and empirical hypotheses. I don't consider impossible worlds for logical arguments because I think that you can demonstrate anything you want in an impossible world, and then you can apply that to this world to make any sort of argument you want. For instance, a religious person will compel you to act in a certain way based on arguments they make from the impossible world of heaven.
Okay, well, I would say to that there are hypotheticals actually been useful, especially in like scientific theory. Like,
Oh, I
for
totally agree,
example,
100%. Yeah, there are plenty of useful hypotheticals. Yeah.
yeah. So why would you deny the utility of a hypothetical deal dealt with morality to create a system that would be more efficient for humanity, akin to the way it's used in science?
Well, in science, I don't think we use hypotheticals from impossible worlds. Do you?
Well, yeah, we do. General relativity, for example, was a hypothetical Einstein used about a falling elevator. I mean, I don't know how that would be something like realistic in the way that he thought of it, or like if you think about, for example, special relativity going at the speed of light. That's something that's completely nonsensical in like the real world, but those help to formulate Einstein's ideas. No.
Do you really think that the empirical measurements and the data that we collect and the theories that we create and then the predictions that we make regarding things like general or special relativity or quantum mechanics is going to be on the same level as positing hypothetical worlds that have aliens? Do you think that these are the same types of hypothetical worlds or impossible worlds?
Oh, I think that the more hypotheticals it definitely bring mass amount of utility to construct like the best moral
Well,
system we should have as a
sure, but what I'm
society.
saying is that these are two completely different types of hypotheticals. One represents an impossible world, and one is trying to mirror the real world. When Einstein is creating like relativity or anything related to that, or when people are surmising hypotheticals, they're using it as a mirror for the real world. They're not imagining an impossible world. They're hoping that they're approximating the actual world.
Well, but when you create a moral hypothetical, you are actually trying to apply it to the real world. You're
Well,
just
I don't understand what
abstracting
a
it to
moral
make it more.
hypothetical. I'm a moral anti-realist. I don't believe that morality is something that can be discovered or found. So I don't understand what a moral hypothetical would be.
It's a hypothetical concern with morality.
Well,
You don't,
but
it
we're
doesn't matter if
essentially,
you're
yeah, but we're
comparing.
not really asking a question of morality. We're asking a question of metaphysics. What type of like what can we know about the universe in terms of what can we know about the physics of the universe? And I
No, no,
don't.
no, no, no. I'm speaking is purely in normative. I'm not talking about like some meta. Like, so what I'm saying is, okay, so like, what is the best moral system we should have for society, right? How should we constrain this or maximize it? Kant did it, of course, with the categorical imperatives, right? I mean, it's a hypothetical the way that he did it. It's not like, I mean, I don't understand why you again are selectively choosing your hypotheticals you want to interact with here.
Well, I'm not selectively. Well, I am selectively. The selection I'm making is a hypothetical that can be observed somehow in the empirical world, or has some bearing on the empirical
Okay,
world, or related to the empirical world.
but then again, we can go back to the scientific theories and like theoretical physics. These aren't hypotheticals that are somehow in the real world. These are completely, conceptual things. But they just happen to have some utility, and
Why do they
they
have?
get that
Why do
swing
scientific hypotheticals have utility in the real world?
because I guess the aggregate amount of scientists would assume that this is the best possible explanation at this time. It's not that they have some weird
Exactly.
empirical
An
grounding.
explanation of an
Okay,
empirical
okay,
fact. I don't believe that morality is something that can be empirically observed. So this doesn't work.
no, no, no. But the problem is what's the best explanation to describe reality, right? Or what's the best way to act in society? I don't know why. Again, these
Well,
are
I
completely
don't
different.
believe there is a best way to act in society. Unless you believe, do you believe there is a best way to act in society?
I believe that, well, if we all have the same, well, we can argue that most people have the same like moral oughts, right? So
Well,
using that,
no.
we
Well,
can
I'm
work
just
within the
curious. Do you
system.
think there is a because it sounds like because if you want to equate these two hypotheticals, science tries to approximate the real world with a hypothetical. You're telling me that you can use a moral hypothetical to approximate a best moral approach to something. It sounds to me like you think
Yeah.
that morality is something that exists in the real world that can be approximated with some sort of hypothetical.
No, you don't have to. If we let's say I have four people in the room and we both agree on say like our base axiom as maximize well-being for ourselves, we
Okay.
can construct multiple moral systems and abstract that and see which is the best in those scenarios. It doesn't have to. You don't have to
Sure,
believe in
but if
some type
one
of mind
person in that
independent
room were to try
morality.
to abstract that moral system to heaven or hell, the other three people in that room would probably be upset about it, wouldn't they?
When you guys are done, I got 5 and 6 pragmatics for Destiny to bite the bullet.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go
Sorry.
to
Repeat what you said.
if you had four
All
people in
right,
a
more
room.
pragmatics.
Well, if you had four people in a room and one of them said that I'm gonna make a hypothetical world and that's gonna be the divine one, and then they're going to use that to disprove your pragmatic arguments. Would you let them do that?
Frog concern.
Well, if they define like some type of divine hypothetical, then it would be contingent on the people who are engaging in this hypothetical to somehow believe in some type of divine reality. I don't think we give you a divine hypothetical when we're talking about our vegan morality.
You don't think of where will you talk about potential aliens coming to the planet? That's not a divine hypothetical to you? You think that that's realistically going to happen?
I think that's not something that's implausible theoretically.
Okay, I mean, God isn't implausible theoretically either, no?
I think you can make a lot more of a case that aliens is more of a logical assumption than a divine being outside of space and time.
Really?
I mean,
can you point to any? Can you point to? Okay.
Even Kant himself was like, well, I won't even to talk about God, for example, is completely weird, because if you can't interact with something that's not in space and time, it's like unlikely that you can even ever interact with that. But in terms of an alien, I mean, you could hypothetically say, okay, you have panspermia, right? A bacteria goes to another planet, millions of years happen, billions of years, whatever, and those, that it turns into intelligent life. I mean, I don't know why that's, again, completely out the realm of reason.
Why would you assume that aliens would even exist in the same way that we do, that they wouldn't have any sort of divine properties?
I'm not assuming. Well, when you say divine, then again, you're appealing to something outside of space and time, which is, again, something we can't know about. So,
okay. All right, what do you got, Abby?
All right. Okay. So here's a much more probably a lot more realistic than 1, 2, 3. So let's say, I mean, we already talked about neutral selection, so we already are.